This man gave the orders. These men carried them out. The SS. Between them, they were responsible for 9 million dead human beings. Under the precedent of international law, the waging of war has gone unpunished. It would take a strong decision to establish the concept of punishment of war criminals.
This story is about that decision and the facts behind it. And I wanted them told, no matter whom they hurt.
President Roosevelt, about a month before he died, had sent me to London on a mission to talk with Mr. Churchill, then Prime Minister, and with the British War Cabinet on the subject of trying the major war criminals of the Nazi regime. President Roosevelt was very anxious that they be tried so that there would not grow up the myth about Hitler and his cohorts that grew up about Napoleon.
1945. The new President of the United States, brand new to the responsibility for a decision. What would Harry Truman do?
I hadn't been in office more than 24 hours when Mr. Stettinius, the Secretary of State, came to see me and gave me a brief on what was proposed. There it was in black and white. The principal policy was the destruction of the national Nazi government and the war trials of the various criminals. Back after World War I, the Allies wanted to try the Kaiser for what they called supreme offenses against international morality and the sanctity of treaty. But he escaped over to Holland, and they wouldn't turn him over for trial. A list of 100 war criminals was given to the Germans for them to try themselves. They tried a dozen. 9 were convicted and got very mild sentences.
Moscow, 1943. The Allies said that war criminals whose acts cannot be localized geographically because they affect several countries will be punished by common decision.
Later, at Tehran, Stalin offered a toast to the punishment of all war criminals. And he said that there were at least 50,000 of them. I also offer a toast to the firing squad, he said. 4 days after I became president, I told Congress my objective.
The laws of God and of man have been violated, and the guilty must not go unpunished. Nothing shall shake our determination to punish the war criminals, even though we must pursue them to the ends of the earth.
Punishment should not be meted out without a trial. The trial was what I was fighting for. I wanted to make it impossible for anybody to say that this was just a lot of propaganda, that it didn't happen, that it was a pack of lies. I wanted to fix it so things would be down in black and white, and the evidence would be available for future generations, just like it was to us. That was the reason I wanted trials. I wanted to see that these atrocities, such as this, were punished. I was very much surprised to get the word from Judge Rosenman. It shocked me, the message that he gave me.
I discussed the question of the trial of war criminals with Mr. Churchill and with members of the War Cabinet. They wanted to treat the war criminals as a political matter. This is the way they treated Napoleon himself.
I didn't want the same thing to happen to Hitler that happened to Napoleon Bonaparte. You see, Hitler was called the Beast of Berlin. Napoleon was called the Ogre of Corsica. He was exiled on the island of St. Helena, and it gave him an opportunity to make a hero out of himself by writing his viewpoint of what took place. I didn't want that same thing to happen to Hitler. I didn't want Hitler to have a chance to be made a hero by future generations, because he was anything but that. He was the greatest murderer in the history of the world. In June 1945, I gave Judge Sam Rosenman 2 jobs. Was to sound out Supreme Court Justice Mr. Robert Jackson and see if he would undertake the program of lining up the procedures for trying these Nazi criminals in their own countries. I knew what war was, but it had never been like this. And I was determined, if it was the last thing I ever did, to let the whole world know just exactly what had been happening. Justice Jackson had made up his mind. He said he'd tackle the job.
The difficult task which I have undertaken at President Truman's request is to prepare and present to an international military tribunal the case against the principal war criminals on behalf of the United States.
And believe it or not, the Germans were helping. They had kept all kinds of records of what they had done. Pictures, movies, all sorts of things that showed just exactly what they were doing.
I am convinced that we have an opportunity to bring to a just judgment those who have thought it safe to wage aggressive and ruthless war. The measure of our success will, of course, depend upon the support we have from the people of the United States.
Mr. Justice Jackson told me that he was against farcical trials like those that have been carried out after the First World War. And he insisted that we move fast, lest the war-weary German people do what the Italians did when they caught Mussolini, their Caesar. They exercised lynch law. And I sent Mr. Justice Jackson to Europe to set up the procedure for the trial.
Harry Truman said, "Good luck to you, and give them all that's coming to them."
Of course, this procedure had never been tried in the history of the world because it has been the custom of the conquerors to lay waste to the country they took and hang as many of the people and shoot as many of them as they could and rob all the rest. But the objective of this was to set a precedent so that wouldn't be done in case of another war. By the first week in August, we had set up the procedure, we had the indictments, and the trials were ready to go forward. And the whole world knows what happened. An international tribunal, the complainant, the conscience of mankind.
Why is there law? Why are there trials? Why is there punishment? Surely not for retribution, small payment for such slaughter, but for hope. Hope that a lesson taught is a lesson learned. Beyond this handful of master criminals, 80,000 smaller Nazis were also tried, most of them punished. It is to be hoped that all of the others, and all the world too, may have learned that man must not do such things to mankind, anywhere, ever again.
Now posterity may forget their names, but nobody can say that it never happened because of things on the record. Never again can men say, I was following orders. And never again can men in power give such orders. It is a precedent which will last in history, and I'm as happy as I can be that we were able to establish that precedent, hoping always that there'll never be another world war or any other kind of a war. But if there is one, these people will understand that they're up for punishment if they carry on the horrors such as Hitler and Mussolini did.